What's up, family? Welcome to episode 19 of Stack Sats or Die Trying. This is the Bitcoin Show brought to you by the Hood. I'm your host, as always. My name is Jimmy. And I know you're probably confused a little bit by the title of this episode, but give me a chance to explain before we do that. Shout out to everybody who's supporting our camp. If you're interested in our camp, this our 10th annual camp this summer, starting next month, and you can go to buythehoodcamp.com to get more information. Thank you for those that have registered the youth. Thank you also for those that have donated. And by the way, all donations actually go to the students of our camp. So I want to start off by saying that. And also just thank you for everybody who supports everything we do, specifically this show right here, because we are on Stack Sats or Die Trying, right? But let's talk about what I learned about crypto from Gordon Ramsay. And it says crypto specifically, and this is a Bitcoin show, but let me explain why. So many of you know, and a lot of you don't know, I'm in the process of moving, right? So I bought a new house for myself and my family. I'm in the process of moving. And one of the things I did was, I went and bought this ridiculously huge 85-inch Samsung TV. I was trying to buy a 100-inch, but had to be put on special order, and I wanted what was ever in the store. So make a long story short, I bought an 85-inch TV. What does this have to do with Bitcoin? Give me a second, right? So as I'm getting it set up and everything, connecting the internet, blah, blah, blah. Samsung has this application for the shout out to everybody who uses Samsung phones. I use both Apple and Android, but Samsung has this Samsung TV app where they give you free TV. So as I'm testing to make sure, the new screen, got to put on the wall and all that, making sure everything's fine. What happened is Samsung TV had an episode of a Gordon Ramsay show called Kitchen Nightmares. So came on just happenstance as I was testing out the TV, and I started watching it, got into it, and next thing you know, I'm up all night binge watching this show because it's just amazing content. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing every episode, but it's still funny. He comes in, tells them what's wrong with their business, does a full consultation, changes things in their business. But and let me back up a little bit more too. I've been into investing real estate the whole nine for my entire adult life. So often I do this when I'm watching things that have nothing to do with it. I draw parallels between the content that I'm consuming and my thoughts and ideas as it pertains to investing, right? So obviously I'm always thinking about Bitcoin, and sometimes things just like, I'm watching one thing that's nothing to do with Bitcoin, but it actually makes me think about it. So I've probably watched 30 episodes at this point. I mean, it got to the point where really, so I said, all right, so I'm into this show. Let me see what it's streaming on. By the way, it's streaming on Amazon Prime. It's also streaming on Peacock because, I went and watched it there. Side note, if you do watch it on like Peacock or Amazon TV because, he be cussing them out. They don't play that on the Samsung version. They kind of bleep that out, but it's not bleeped out on Peacock, by the way. All right, I digress. By the way, the Stack Sats or Die Trying the show itself has turned into me and my rambles, and I have fun doing that. Hope you guys enjoy it. But it's also a different ways to think about Bitcoin and investing overall. So I'm watching these episodes back to back to back to back, and what occurred to me was there's one thing, right? So there's different changes he makes to the restaurant. Some of it is the signage, some of it is doing like full rehabs of how it appears. Some of it is actually replacing some of the staff. The chef is terrible, or this manager is terrible. So there are a lot of different things that he does to the different restaurants, but there is one thing that he consistently does at every restaurant. And what that is he looks at their menu and he dumbs it down. I shouldn't say dumbs it down. He pares it down. He really condenses their menu into a smaller menu of things for them to focus on. And I mean, this matter of fact, season 1, episode 2, because I'm telling y'all, I've been deep in a rabbit hole. Shout out to Gordon Ramsay though, because I never really watched any of his shows, but now I'm like a Gordon Ramsay fan, and I'm like looking at all his other shows, like and I'm not even into cooking. I'm not a chef boy, but I find him entertaining. Anyway, I digress. Season 1, episode 2. There's a restaurant. It's called Dylan's, right? And they're an Indian restaurant, but they also serve. They have a British menu and like a French menu on top of the fact that they're Indian cuisine. And he goes off on them. Like, you're confusing people. It's too much it's too many things for you to know how to make well. Like, how many chefs are you going to have that can, just go from one thing to the other thing, right? And he makes it a point of doing this literally in every restaurant. And he often has conversations with them. And one of the things he says is, To be successful, a lot of times is about hyper focusing, right? You have to focus on how to do certain things good and how to understand things well. As it pertains to cuisine, you got to understand flavors. You have to understand taste. You have to understand what pairs well with it. How can you do that if you have 200 things on your menu? And as he constantly did this, it made me think about investing, and it made me think about crypto specifically, because a lot of people that I talk to within cryptocurrency, when I ask them why do they buy all of the various tokens and coins that they buy, the thing they preach to me is, Jimmy, you gotta diversify. You gotta diversify. And I say you don't have to diversify, because most of the time when I ask them about a specific product or project, what is it doing, they don't have answers, right? They don't read white papers. And even if they do, the things that are promised in the white paper, are they fulfilling that? Most of the time, people don't have an answer. The fact is, they have way too many things on their menu. You need to pare it down. One of the reasons, now, let me make myself clear. I think that all shit coins are trash. All of them are eventually going to zero against Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is the revolutionary product. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. But I also feel like it's important to hyper focus on Bitcoin, because Bitcoin itself, from a technological standpoint, from a news standpoint, from a narrative standpoint, has so many things going on. How could you possibly fully immerse yourself and understand this technology and also understand these other things? You need to condense your menu. And, taking it a step further out, I think that most of us need to condense our menu overall as it pertains to investing, right? So people often ask me, because I talk about investing every week on not only this show, which is Stack Sats to Die Trying, but our Wednesday show, the By the Hood flagship podcast, and on our Friday Live. We talk about all kinds of stuff on Friday Live, but we talk about investing. So one of the questions I get often is, what are you investing? And I've said this several times, 90% of my entire portfolio is in Bitcoin, residential real estate investment property, and the S&P 500, right? I would say 90%. Now, I got some stragglers, a little bit of this, a little bit of that here and there, things I've bought along the way. But even the first stocks that I bought, and I've mentioned this on several shows before, the first stocks that I ever bought when I first started investing in 1996 as a teenager, first stock that I ever bought was Coca-Cola and McDonald's. And the reason I did that is because those are things that I knew what they were. It was literally branding. I was brand washed, and I was like, okay, I want to get into this investing thing. What are some of the brands that I recognize? But even those, and I built them up over the years, over the last several years, I sold out of them. I sold out of them and converted to the S&P 500. And the reason being is I no longer have time nor desire to pay attention to individual stocks for the most part. I do own some other ETFs. I have, like I said, I got little stragglers here and there of individual stocks that I may own, but I don't have time to sit on calls, right? To follow what's going on in the 10K, to follow quarter to quarter. And I feel like as an investor, if you're going to invest in a company, you really have to take it that serious. I don't look at investing in stock as being a passive thing like other people do. Nor do I look at Bitcoin or crypto, for that matter, to be a passive thing, because there's so many projects that I've seen people get rug pulled from because they were promised to do one thing, never did it, and they ended up getting their money rug pulled, right? Before I became a Bitcoiner and got fully immersed into Bitcoin, which I have been for several years at this point, I did go down the shitcoin rabbit hole. I was rug pulled. I lost several $1,000s in crypto. Now, I'm not mad because I also made money, right? Being transparent. But since I've hyper focused on Bitcoin, I'm so secure in how I feel about the product, how I'm so secure in what I'm doing, and I no longer even have to think about it. Again, I just stack sats. I stack sats. I stack paper sats. I don't care if it's iBit. I'm stacking them. Physical Bitcoin, I'm stacking that. I'm stacking Bitcoin in so many ways that it's like, this is where I'm focused on. I'm just so hyper focused. Give you an example. Everyone knows I love the Fold card, right? But for some things that I can't pay via Fold, I do have a new card that I use, which is a Wells Fargo Active card, which gives me 2% cash back on everything. I have that set up. So for every time I get $25 back in cash, it automatically goes to my brokerage with Wells Fargo and buys iBit. My Fold is stacking me sats. So I'm stacking paper sats, regular sats, literally all day, every day, outside of my DCA that I do. And everyone knows that I believe in DCA, dollar cost average, and don't try to time the market, spend time in the market. I have DCA been going on the S&P 500 for over 20 years. I look for advantages in the market as it pertains to single family residential real estate in Philadelphia. That's how specific I am. I don't buy in other cities, other states, other counties. I buy right in Philadelphia. The deal has to make sense. If not, I'll just keep buying sats. Like, so I'm on autopilot. But I think that watching this Gordon Ramsay show really made me think about it, because although it's a cooking show, it's really about business. Yeah. So if you haven't checked that episode out of that show, just check it out. It's not even on air no more. I think it stopped airing literally a decade ago. And it just was happenstance. And this is where my brain went watching it. But it's really about a business. So it's really business lessons within here, business lessons in terms of marketing, but also business lessons in being hyper focused and really understanding what your product is. And I think the same thing applies to your investments. It reminded me of something I once saw Charlie Munger say about diversification. As a matter of fact, let me share this quick video. If you're watching the video, you'll be able to see the video. If you're listening to the audio, I'll make sure that you can hear it. But this is a clip from Charlie Munger being interviewed. It's on a YouTube channel here. Let me tell you what YouTube channel it's on, because I don't want any strikes or anything like that. But I do want to comment on it. It's from a YouTube channel, Dr. Sabrina K, who was interviewing Charlie Munger. So let me play it and, let you guys hear what Charlie Munger said. It's real quick. It's less than a minute long. But Charlie Munger is literally anti-diversification. Also, rest in power to Charlie Munger. For those who don't know who Charlie Munger is, he was the long-term business partner of Warren Buffett, who passed away at 99 years of age. He was also anti-Bitcoin. He called it rat poison squared. But I wasn't mad at him for that either, right? And I'm going to tell you why real fast before I play this video. He made his money in a different system, right? So when something comes along that threatens that, this is how you respond. Also, historically speaking, they haven't been great as it pertains to technology anyway, and that's okay. But I think this is still think this is still interesting perspective about diversification overall and why you should be hyper focused. So shout out to Dr. K, and here's from that channel, and then I'll let you know my thoughts real fast. But hear this out.
Where would you invest your grandchildren's money?
The very word diversification, which is taught in every business school, is the holy golden grail. I consider almost asinine. I'm only interested in investing where I have some sort of advantage. And of course, that means I can't do the conventional things. And if I have the advantage in 3 different things, that's enough for any family. 3 wonderful things with the odds in your favor. I mean, do you want egg in your beer in life? And so I think the idea you have to have a big diversified portfolio, that's fine for the ignorant people to be fully diversified. But if you actually know what you're doing, I think 3 investments are plenty. And the Mungers, if you take Berkshire and Costco and Lilu's Asian fund, that's 90% of the money.
All right. So there you have it, right? He said, now, it's some context to that too, right? He said 90% of his money is in 3 places. It's a Lulu fund, which is a fund that invests in overseas market. Berkshire and Costco are his 3 investments of his entire family's portfolio. Now, some will say, well, that's kind of a cheat code because Berkshire itself is diversified, but that's okay. Berkshire is his holding. That's the way I look at the S&P, right? S&P, Bitcoin, residential real estate, things that I have an advantage. I have an advantage with Bitcoin because of the amount of studying, the amount of reading that I do. All right, excuse me. That was the next Munger video automatically playing. But no, so I have an advantage in Bitcoin because of the studying that I do literally on a daily basis. This is what I read about. It's what I care about. Residential real estate for the same reasons, and specific to our city because it's literally my job to study real estate as a real estate data scientist and analyst. So I have an advantage there, which is why, I've told a story about having a huge portfolio and paring it down, but now my acquisitions have slowed. I haven't bought a new property. Well, I just bought a new property this year. So who am I kidding? This is for me to live in. But outside of that, it was probably 2 years, before, like 2 or 3 years since before this purchase. And it's because I haven't found anything to fit my criteria, which is based on a competitive advantage, right? As I look at the S&P 500, my advantage is literally data, right? I'm not looking to find the best stock, right? I know that it's weighted. So therefore, the Apples, the Microsofts, the Nvidias will be heavily weighted. And I understand over time that most people have no ability to beat the S&P 500. You can Google and do your own research on that. But this is a Bitcoin show. So the competitive advantage in Bitcoin, and one of the things that I've been trying to kind of talk about since episode 1 of this is I like you guys, and I appreciate you guys supporting watching this, but I want people to study. I want people to really get into the books. I want them to understand the value proposition, because I think this is one of the biggest wealth transfers we'll ever see. We are still early. We are so early. And I know the hype comes and it goes, the narrative changes, hype comes and goes, but the idea is, and the reason this is stack, sats, or die trying is because those that are stacking and not paying attention to the noise will be the ones that will be the winners 5-10 years from now. But also, don't fall into the trap of having to diversify with crypto, because what if this happens? What if Solana does this? Or what if Ethereum does? Listen, get a competitive advantage by buckling down, studying. Decrease the items on your menu. Learn like I did from the great Gordon Ramsay. There's no need to have a British menu, right? There's no need to have a French menu and also an Indian menu within one establishment. You get good at Indian cuisine and you focus on that. You get good at Bitcoin and you focus on that, right? 3 things are enough. And I think that is the gist of what I want to communicate via this show. But it actually came to me watching Kitchen Nightmares. That's a true story. And if you end up watching any of those episodes, just pay attention to what I'm saying. That is one of the biggest. It's not even a hack at this point. Like if I own a restaurant, which I'll never do because the success rate of a restaurant is insanity. The returns must be amazing if you are able to do it. It has to be, because when you look at the data on that, no one ever really succeeds. But anyway, if I did and I was watching that, the first thing I would do is look at my menu and say, man, where can I cut, right? Sometimes people try to overcomplicate things. As someone who works in the data science field, I also understand as it pertains to running models, people try to add so many variables instead of keeping them frugal and understanding what it is you're solving for. Crypto, I see it in the stocks. Listen, I've sat down with people, just again, I've worked as a financial strategist in the past, and I sit down with people and they've had 100 different stocks. And I'm like, yo, you're not making any money. You have 100 different stocks. And by the time you start buying that many stocks, you're probably better off just buying a bucket of the S&P anyway. If you own 100 individual stocks, what are you really doing? Do you really even know what you own? Are you paying attention? Who is the CEO of all these various companies? If you own an individual stock and you don't know who the CEO is, then you're not doing it the right way. Because when you buy a share of a company, you are buying equity in said company, right? I'm not talking about my traders who are just looking at price action and trying to take advantage of that. But if you are long-term in a company and you don't know who the CEO is, then you're an amateur and you don't know what you're doing, and you're probably better off buying a basket, right? Just that very simple. And that's my opinion. Don't get offended, right? Just do better. All right, y'all. So this has been another episode of Stack Sats and Die Trying. Hope you got something from this episode. I hope you enjoyed listening to Charlie Munger, rest in power, give his perspective on diversification. Also, shout out to my guy Gordon. It's my new guy now, man. That's my homie now, man. Shout out to Gordon Ramsay, man. I'm about to go jump off here, go watch some more episodes and watch him tell people to, make a smaller menu. Make a smaller menu. You dig? I appreciate y'all. Give me some feedback. Let me know you think about all of my ramblings or thoughts that I give to you. Listen, man, that applies to everything. I'm sitting there thinking about it. It applies to friendships. It applies to women. It applies to cars. Like, just get better at hyper-focusing, man. And part of this might be my inner minimalist, because I'm a struggling minimalist, although this move has given me the ability to throw a bunch of stuff away. I promise y'all, I'm about to start doing minimalism videos on this channel. With that being said, though, I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. You know what I'm saying? It's by the hood all day, every day. Remember, stack sats or die trying. Peace.